missed last week, but just was too crazy with work. But back this week, and I thought we could ease into it by just doing a life drawing session. So this will be just like another virtual life drawing session. We'll do a few 2 minutes, maybe a couple of 5 minutes, or maybe 1 5 minute and 2 10s even. The only thing that I'll say up front, and maybe I'll talk a little bit in between some of the poses, is that I just want to make sure that it's useful for you. And to that end, one thing I've realized, as I say, I've been very busy the last couple of weeks. I've been doing a lot of storyboarding, and the jobs have been very much under the pump. So I've had to draw really fast. And what that has made me realize is that I've been using construction a lot. I've had some tricky poses in some of the boards that I've been doing, and I noticed that I've been able to rely quite heavily on this idea of breaking the body down into simple shapes first when I sketch it. And so if that works for storyboarding, where I'm having to draw figures in, a couple minutes each, then it really does apply here as well, especially if you're ever having any issues with getting proportions. I think the reason that can happen is because it gets so easy to get lost in detail on the figure, on particular curves or details of shadow too early on in the drawing, when you haven't quite laid down just simple construction first. So I just will show you this quickly. I just quickly did this sketch before, just as an example of gesture lines first. So I've put down the curve in the spine there first, and made sure that I've put a line, a good flowing line straight down to indicate that leg. Those two lines already kind of captures the pose and make sure that it's feeling balanced, so then it doesn't look like the model's toppling over. But then after that, as you can see, I've literally just put in a big block for that center of mass there. And then I've worked my way out of that. And I just want to point out that as you put in these blocks, what you're doing, or at least what I'm doing, is I'm checking the proportions at this point before I get lost in any detail. So I'll draw next to my own drawing here. If you look at this distance from here to here, when I put on the next shape above that, up here, I'm comparing, I'm looking over at the photo and I'm asking myself, if this area is this big, how big should this extended shape above it be in relation to that? Is it sort of the same again? There's a little bit more. In this case, it's a little bit more, as in this distance from here to here is a little bit more than here to here. And same with the leg. And I guess we haven't really talked about this much yet. I don't believe, well, it's not that I don't believe, but I've never found it that useful, that system of figure diagrams, where they break it down by saying the figure is this many heads high or anything like that. That's never worked for me, like measuring out someone standing there dead straight, because you never draw someone standing with their arms by their sides, like stiff as a board. Poses are dynamic and they're all over the place. So what's more important is that you just draw regularly from life, or from life photos like this. But what we haven't talked about yet, and maybe there should be a whole class on this, maybe I'll do this as the next one, is measuring as you're drawing. And so by that I mean literally I do it I do it automatically now, and I forget that I'm doing it. But as I'm drawing, I'm constantly comparing everything as I draw. I put in one. Me too. Yes, and I think it's easy for us to forget that. Someone else is not experienced doing that yet. So that constant thing of comparing, saying, okay, if this bit was this big, how big is this section compared to that? So I just wanted to say that and show you this quick sketch that I did here to show you how I approach. And the more difficult the poses get and the more dynamic they get, the more weird the camera angle gets on them, the more foreshortening you have to do, the more important it becomes to use this construction and not get lost in the curves and the nooks and crannies of the figure too quickly. So I won't babble on anymore, but let's get started. We'll do at least a couple of twos. I'll just prepare my layers here, sorry. yeah, we'll do at least a couple of 2 minutes, and then we'll see how we go with breaking up the pose lengths on the remaining ones. So let's start this 2 minute now. Okay, that's the end of that 2 minutes. All right, so once again, just before we start, before we jump into it, just so that I can be as useful as possible, let me take a red mark here and let's have a quick look at some shapes that we could break this down into. Once again, this kind of center of mass shape like that. And this, notice how you can offset these squares the way that the top square is sitting on the bottom square, and that kind of gives us that hip, the way the hip sticks out there, that offset. It helps, it actually captures the pose quite quickly just in those two squares. And then remembering this center of balance, this leg is coming in from the side because it's supporting pretty much all the weight. So it's those things that these are the two things I guess I'm trying to focus on tonight, is proportion and balance. So there's an idea of quick construction for this pose. All right, let's go for another 2 minutes. Ooh, that one went quick. I didn't even
I
realize.
know. Yeah.
Wow, that one caught me off guard. Yeah. 2 minutes on that.
It's not a 2-minute task.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right. So let me just check what I've got coming up here. Okay. Yeah. No, this one's definitely meant to be another 2 minutes. This one, if I was to say anything up front about it, is just to note that what makes this pose is kind of the way his head's set forward on his neck there. It's this line through here. Sort of got, you're always looking for these S shapes, and you can certainly see them here. Just notice the S, or reverse S or whatever on this back leg here. Convex and then concave coming up like that. As far as shapes, and this is where it gets trickier. That's why I like wide hips, because it gives an easy center of mass to work outwards from. This sort of physique doesn't give you a nice center of mass. He's kind of widest up here at his shoulders and upper torso. But you can still start from there like that and then work your way down, and then you can always create a block for the hip area to anchor it. You see how just by putting in a block for the hips and a block for, not for the rib cage, but roughly that area, it sort of captures the pose along with a couple of gesture lines. And that's all you need to check your proportions and say, right, have I got the lengths working here or not? All right. And yeah, so this will just be the last 2-minute warm-up that we do. So 2 minutes starting now. That's the end of that 2 minutes. All right. So we'll do this one as a 5 minute. Won't talk too much at the start of this one, but I guess just a couple of things that I see as soon as I look at this is this continuous line as far as flow goes, we've sort of got a line coming up from here and going up this calf and right through across the top of the shoulders and up here. That's kind of the real flow of this one. And yeah, what else to note here? I mean, there's the rib cage kind of area. I think the main thing with this one is making sure it doesn't look like he's toppling over, leaning too far right or left. So getting some of these angles is probably right to make it look, it's probably important to make it look anchored. But yeah, we've got a little bit longer on this one. We've got 5 minutes, so a bit more time to get that construction and proportion working before you worry about details or shading. I'll just fix my clock. All right, so 5 minutes starting now. I think one of the main things with life drawing as well is to not get too worried about the time and running out of time. We always take the time to stop and have a look at how you're going, fix anything if you need to, because there's no point in rushing on if you've got some fundamental thing not working. So don't worry too much about the time limit. All right, that's the end of that 5. That was a tricky pose to draw, really. Okay. Now, I threw this one in on purpose, and we don't have to spend a full 10 minutes on it. But look, I threw this one in on purpose because it's just such a weird and difficult and tricky angle. But I figured that the point of doing this is to get us to really think in terms of construction, because when you get a weird angle like this, like, you really need to break it down, because if you just try to draw it as a set of outlines, you're going to struggle. So this is where it becomes essential to, perhaps start with the rib cage like this. I'm drawing over the photo here, and get that blocked in so that we can see a cylindrical shape receding away from us like this. And same with the hips. We're seeing when you do foreshortening like this, it's usually shapes overlapping, like ovals or cylinders overlapping. And so getting those two things in will allow us to have that basis, that center of mass construction to work our way out of. And once again, as this leg recedes here that I'm drawing over, if I draw a circle where the knee joint would be, and then I draw another circle where the ankle would be, and then I connect those two circles, that gives me our foreshortening. And you can imagine lines like this circling the mass, working its way down like that. That's how you do foreshortening. And it's essential to know that when you do life drawing and they end up in 20-minute poses, they often end up lying down like this, and you can easily end up seeing it from an angle like this. So I threw this one in so that we could really practice construction. We don't have to go into crazy detail with this. I've got another pose after this, but we've only got about 14 minutes left. So we'll see. We'll either spend the rest of it on this, or we'll do this quickly and do a long one after this. So maybe let's try do this one quickly, because I know it's difficult. I don't think I want to spend the rest of the time on it. So let's try do this one in like 5 minutes, starting now. But let's just focus on construction, even if you can. Try to do this without even getting lost in the detail or trying to make it look realistic. Let's just together try to break this down into 3-dimensional overlapping shapes so that we can capture some foreshortening without getting lost in detail. So I'm sketching in sort of a rough rib cage shape here, and then moving down to the hips here. So I've got 2 overlapping shapes now, and which already is capturing the arch in the back part of the pose. A gesture line to find where that leg is going in the distance. And just as I did before, I will get down to where the knee is and draw a circle to indicate that joint. And then I can connect to the outside of that circle. And another circle in the distance for the ankle. And a wedge for the foot. This raised leg's not as hard because we're sort of seeing it square on, so there's not so much foreshortening here. But once again, I'm trying to compare where is that knee compared to the other knee. So if this knee's here, I'm going up at a slightly more than 45-degree angle to find this other knee here and erase my bad line. And then with having found that, the position for that knee, I can then just connect that to the body, to the hips. And see that one off. And then coming up to the arms and head, let's just quickly whack in a shape for that. The chin is really sitting in line with the top of the rib cage shape. Notice that the surface of the face over here is kind of a repeat of the curve of the sort of breast area there. So if this is in our shape here, if that's kind of the breast area, we know that the face is continuing on from that, like so. And because it is foreshortened, the head's reasonably big in relation to the torso. So remembering the lesson we did on drawing the head quickly, I'm doing that same thing here now. I'm drawing the front of the face first, and then I'm extending at the back here for the back of the skull. And I can put a line down the middle there. I'm not going to draw the face, not going to try to even get that far. And for the arms, once again, overlapping circles. So I will put a circle where the shoulder is, like so. And then I will put a circle measuring it next to the head, where the elbow is, around here. And then work our way from the shoulder up like so. I'm going to run out of room, but it doesn't matter. We've got the main part of the shapes in here. Other elbow is quite a bit further down here. And yeah, and really that's all I wanted to do on this one. I sort of purposely threw it in because it was such a difficult angle, and I wanted to I kind of just wanted to do a demo and show how you can use construction to capture that pose real quick. If you think we did that in 3-4 minutes, and look at how difficult a pose it is, and that just shows the power of using simple construction and not getting lost in detail. So I hope that was useful. That's the method that I found very useful when I'm under the pumps storyboarding and I'm having to draw dynamic poses. So just for fun, let's use the rest of our time to do this pose. Hopefully it's a little easier and a bit more fun after all the difficult stuff we've been doing. So we've got about 8 minutes to go on this. All right, we might get cut off soon. We can keep going until we get cut off, but yeah, I hope that was useful and fun. So combining a bit of life drawing and with some focus on construction and proportion, because I think it's like a neat trick that it allows you to get a pose down real quick before you get lost in details.
Yeah, putting those shapes in certainly helps, you know, like the boxes and...
Yeah, exactly. It helps you measure too, because you don't get lost in details of contour and everything. You can just look at it as overall masses, which I think really helps.
Yeah. Getting involved the other too quickly throws you off again.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Really helpful. Thanks, Dylan.
No worries.
If I didn't do this, I feel like I forget how to draw.
Yeah.
I must say I need it too now. Yeah, it's sort of like these sessions really help me as well, especially with storyboarding.